Okay, so we are,
So you want to talk about Pauline's third husband?
well, this is the Life and Times of Louise Klein, video number 3. Speak a little louder just because of the gardeners are outside. Hopefully it's not going to affect too much. I'm going to move this in a little closer.
Yeah, my throat is getting weak.
So, what was the relationship between your mother and father?
I really don't know. They fought a lot. He was never in the house. The only time he was home was on Sunday. So on Sunday, what did we do?
Just speak up because of the guys in the back.
Okay. On Sundays, he would do something with us. Usually we went to the movies, and then from the movies we went to the Chinese restaurant. And we always had the same thing. We had egg foo young and chops and chow mein. That was our dinner out. But there were times when he took us ice skating, but he didn't do anything. I don't remember anything else except that. Of course, in the summertime, he would show up Friday night with my mother, and they would have the weekend together. He didn't have much work because they made sure that I did the lawn with a hand mower. We didn't have a gas mower or anything like that. But I did the lawn with a hand mower, and I had a kid.
How old were you then?
I was a teenager, young teenager, and I always did the lawn. Later on, I think Martin started doing it, but I think that was when I bought a gas mower. Then it was different, and we had a gas mower for years, and then before we sold the house, we had a ride-on mower, and we had a nice garden. How to keep it clean. It was, we enjoyed Putnam Lake. My father did something very unusual one year. The year after the war was over. See, during the war there were a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of things you couldn't do or couldn't buy. So when the war was over, my father bought different types of fruit trees. There was a cherry tree, a pear tree, peach, and we had the apple trees there. And he bought these beautiful trees, but as far as I know, we only got 1 year out of them, and then they started to fall apart. Another thing he did was, that year, he bought 50 gladiola bulbs, because you hadn't been able to buy them. They were beautiful, and they came up, and they were beautiful gladiolas, different colors. And Friday night, we went to sleep with these beautiful colors. We woke up in the morning, and somebody had come by and cut them all the flowers down. And we were so upset. And then we went to sleep Saturday night. We got up in the morning, and somebody had dug up all the bulbs. So we lost all those beautiful gladiola bulbs.
That was in Putnam Lake?
In Putnam Lake, yeah. Yeah.
Well, but going back to your parents, so you don't really know much about their relationship? Good, bad?
They stayed together all those years, but I don't know how happy he was. My mother was miserable. But I don't know if she was miserable with him or just miserable with life. She didn't make it easy for me. She always picked on me. She never picked on Martin. She always picked on me. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And it was terrible. I started to say something before. My mother used to come home from work at 6:10, and I used to shiver. I was so frightened. I was so afraid of what was going to happen when she walked in that door. because she always picked on me. She always yelled at me, and I got to the point where 6'10" came. I hated it, and for years this went on. And when I finally left the house, when I got married, and I looked at the clock and I saw it was 6:10, and I said, "Oh, thank God I don't have to worry about my mother anymore." But then later on, it took me a long time to outgrow that 6:10. As you can tell, here I'm still talking about it 50 years later. But it took a lot out of me, the way she used to yell at me.
What were the different jobs that she had when she went out to work? What did she do?
Well, she was very talented. She took commercial courses in high school. She went to Julia Richmond High School, and they taught them commercial courses. So she was able to do steno, she was able to type, and she had a good command of English. So she was able to pass civil service tests while people were still, they didn't have money for food. People didn't have jobs. But my mother was able to work. So my mother worked in the Bronx she worked in an office that dealt with what they call welfare today. The family, they helped the families that needed work. And then what happened was she took another test and she got a better job. And finally she took a test for federal and ended up as a supervisor in the Navy Yard.
What was she supervising?
She was supervising the typists. She supervised them, and
Was this during World War II?
this was during World War II. And after the war, all these people lost their jobs. But my mother didn't lose her job because she was a federal worker. She had passed the test. So she stayed there until they didn't need her anymore. And then she was able to go out and work in private industry for the first time. And she had a job, one job was with, I think it's called CARE. They sent food packages to Europe to people that were starving. And then she got a job in a zipper factory, and she worked there, I think. And as she went along, she got better jobs. But it's interesting, when she first started, and she was making like $30 a week, and that was considered a lot of money. And then the next job, 35 and 40, she kept on improving herself. And she got enough money saved so that she was able to buy my father a medallion and a taxi. So he became self-employed. But he never did well. I don't know what it was. New Year's Eve, he'd come home, walk in the house at 11 o'clock and say, "I couldn't make it through the night, the taxi broke down." His taxi was always breaking down, or something was always going wrong. But I don't know, they must have gotten along, because we would be gone all summer, and she and my father were home alone. So they must have had a good relationship, because they came up on Friday nights, and they stayed with us until Sunday, and Sunday they left. And when we were in Coney Island, I remember she used to give us $1 a week each. And we had to make that last the whole week. And Martin and I used to save a certain percentage of that dollar, so that at the end of the summer we were able to afford to go to steeplechase. And in steeplechase they had all these different rides. And there was one ride where you go on a horse, and when the horse goes around, it comes out to a platform where there's a stage, And on the stage, there are spaces where the air comes up. And if a woman was wearing if a good woman was wearing a dress, the air would blow her dress up in her face and she would scream. And there was an audience. We used to sit in the audience and laugh. And there was a clown that had a prod. And, you know, he used to get the kids. He used to give the kids the prod with the thing. And one time, my brother, he came off the horse and the guy put the prod down to do something. My brother took it, and he went after the clown with it. He was a killer. My brother was a killer. He was a good boy, though.
So this was before Putnam Lake? You used to go summers to where?
Before Putnam Lake, we used to go to Coney Island. They used to rent a bungalow for the whole summer. So my grandmother stayed with us 1 or 2 years, and then Sue came down and stayed with us for a summer. And then they bought Putnam Lake, and they went through the same thing. We would have somebody stay with us all the time. My grandmother stayed with us a couple of years, but she was very unhappy because we were rotten kids. You know, we wouldn't go to the store to get milk, but we would drink it. And we would eat a whole white bread. We were hungry because we were very active children. And she was angry at us because we wouldn't go shopping for her. And we wouldn't go to the farm to get the milk. So she was unhappy. So she stayed a year or so. And then one year we had a woman, Regina, was a friend of my mother's. She had a little baby. And she stayed with us the whole summer. And then Sue stayed with us one summer. And I don't know anybody else. Oh yeah, one year Mrs. Pearl stayed with us. Her husband was building a house down the road from us. Right down the road, and then a right across the street from the Schwartzes. There was a house over there, and he was building that he was getting his wood and all his equipment from the World's Fair as they took it apart. Like the Japan building came down, he got the wood, and he took it home and built that house from this wood. And she stayed with us, and her son, she had a young son, he stayed with us too. And that was another summer we managed. And I guess after that I got married and I stayed, then I didn't need anybody there.
What kind of jobs did you have as a kid?
As a kid?
Yeah, what were your first jobs? Did you used to do odds and end jobs during school? Or?
Oh, I only had one job for a very short time. That was teaching a woman to read English. She was foreign born and she was having difficulty. But the last time I went to her, she asked me how to spell a cross. And I didn't know, I spelled it A-C-C-R-O-S-S. And that was wrong. So she fired me.
How old were you when you did that?
What?
How old were you?
Oh, maybe 14, you know. So I had that job, and I must have been getting money someplace, because at one point I saved up enough money to buy a pair of shoe roller skates, which I wanted, because I would go to the Fordham rink and lie about my age. You had to be 16 to get in, and I was 14. And I would lie about my age and I would go in, and I learned to dance on skates. So I wanted my own skates, and my mother wouldn't give me the money. I had to save up the money. I think it was $29.
Which was a lot of money.
Yeah, then it was a lot of money. Yeah. So I got my first pair of roller skates, and then Martin liked it, so he also got his roller skates. He was nice on skates. He was tall and he held himself nicely. I was very proud of my brother skating. Yeah. And then that, I don't know how I accumulated money there. From that, but then when I finished high school, my first job was, as I said, as a dental assistant. And it was during the war. The war was just about over, and there were no dentists around. So my dentist had them standing in line out the door and down the steps. He made a fortune, and he paid me 50 cents an hour. I worked 26 hours. I made $26 a week. I worked 52 hours. So I got wise after a while and left him. And I think I mentioned I got a job in the Federal Reserve Bank down near Wall Street. And it was a very good job because they had a lot of benefits. They gave you lunches. The lunches were like 19 cents. And for breakfast, I don't know, like maybe 8 cents for breakfast. You got a cup of coffee, 2 small donuts, and a little glass of orange juice. So if I made $45 a week, I could save $40. Yeah, and the car fare was 10 cents. So, you know, whatever I had left, it was very good. I saved $300 there. Because I remember when I got married, I had $300 in the bank. So that's when I married Lonnie.
We're going to get to that in a minute. So before then, so what were you like as a teenager? How were your teenage years? Were you a good kid, a troublemaker?
I was not a troublemaker, but I wasn't a good kid because there was nobody there. My parents weren't home. And my mother was working nights then. My mother worked at night. There was nobody there. My father wasn't there. My mother wasn't there. So we used to have kids come up to the house. Everybody came to my house. You know, and it really wasn't a good atmosphere. Because they would close the light and we would kiss. And Martin loved it. He was a real kisser. Even now, there's a picture of him on the Facebook. It shows him kissing his wife. He's a real kisser. But those years were very bad because I had no one to encourage me to do my homework or to. I didn't go to the dentist. I ended up losing teeth. I lost about 5 teeth before I was 15. I had the wisdom teeth impacted, and she says, go to the dentist. I didn't go, and I would sign the dental forms for school, and they didn't even know that I didn't go to the dentist. So I lost a lot of teeth. It was a terrible time. I had no supervision at all. And Martin, he was busy. He worked for Mr. Wand. Mr. Wand had a butcher store, kosher butcher store, and Martin delivered. And he made nice money, and he saved all his money. He did well. But I had nothing. So I went to school, I came home, and I futzed around. Didn't finish my homework, didn't study. And so I was, where I used to be an A student, I was a C student. And then I made a big mistake. The first year I was still doing well, so they offered us they offered us to take an extra course. And I always wanted to learn Hebrew. Although we came from a very non-Orthodox home, there was something about us that we enjoyed Judaism, but we didn't practice it in any form, no form at all. And so I decided to take Hebrew. And the first day at Hebrew gave us a book. He said, who studied Hebrew and who didn't? So I raised my hand, I didn't. He said, well, go home on page so-and-so and learn the alphabet. I didn't know how to learn the alphabet. How can you learn the alphabet? So I came the next day, and they start reading. Ba, 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 ba. And I couldn't do it. So I ended up failing the course and knocking all my courses down, and I did very poorly after that. And the only thing that saved me is I also got a chance to take a course in geology, and this interested me. And what I learned in geology has lasted me all my life, because I understand how mountains are built, and farms, and rivers, and things like the Palisades. I understand all these things. So I took this course and I passed it with whatever I passed it with. At the end, I had to take my French, and for 2 years I had a lousy teacher, and I didn't know a word of French, and I was not good in languages to begin with, because when I went to college I took German, and I had to suffer through that also. So, but when I had to take the Regents, I flunked it. And here I had to graduate from high school, and I didn't have the 3 years of French. But because I had the 1 year of geology with the 2 years of science, I was able to squeak out of high school. But I wouldn't have been able to graduate. It would have been a Shonda boy. But I squeaked through, luckily. And I got out of high school, and I remember telling you that I thought I was going to go to college. I wanted to go to either Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music. So when there was a form that I filled out that said what schools you want to go to. So I said Manhattan School of Music and Juilliard. Now I thought they were going to get in touch with me, but nobody got in touch with me. So I never went to school. I never went to college. And I should have gone to Juilliard, because at that point I was a good cellist. I had a marvelous teacher.
Where did you learn cello?
I took cello lessons every Saturday morning.
So your parents were giving you cello lessons?
My parents paid for my cello lessons. Yes, and I went to this man. He was an excellent teacher, and I learned.
Is it the same cello you have today?
Yes. My father bought it for my graduation. My father bought it as a graduation present.
From high school?
From high school, yeah. And I was playing I played in the orchestra in school, and I also played in the Washington Heights Symphony, which was on the radio once a month. It was an excellent orchestra, and I was good, and I had a good seat, and they respected me. I really did very well. So I played there, and then once in a while there was the Bronx Symphonies. I played with them. Wherever there was a symphony orchestra, I would play. And I did well.
They were still in high school you're talking about?
I was in high school, yeah.
So that's pretty impressive that you were playing with symphonies while in high school.
Well, the first year, the music teacher taught us. See, I came to the class. They said anybody who could read music would like to learn another instrument, sign up. So I signed up. And I wanted to play the bass, because I was a jumpy kid, you know. I was not classic.
Bass guitar?
No, a bass fiddle. the big one.
So it's bigger than, it's like a cello but bigger, and you don't, and you use your fingers, not
Yeah,
not a bow.
It's big. Yeah. So I started on the bass, and the teacher felt that that my hand was too small for it. He says, play the cello. I never heard of a cello, you know. So I sat down and he taught me the cello. But he didn't teach properly because he was a music teacher, and he was a violinist. So whatever I learned. So then my mother, they let me take the cello home from school, and I got this teacher. I've forgotten his name, but he was a lovely man, and I studied with him for 3 years, and I learned how to play properly. I learned how to use that instrument the right way, and they wanted, wherever there was a symphony orchestra, I went. But when I finished high school, I wanted to go to Juilliard, and I didn't know I had to go there. So I took this course in assistant dentistry, and I was there, and then from there I went on. See, when I went to this class, this assistant dentistry, she taught us how to type. They taught us how to finger. You watch the chart, and you learn how to type. So by the time I was able to get a job as a typist. And I worked until I got married, and then you quit. You didn't marry.
So we'll get to your marriage.
Huh?
We'll get to your marriage. I just wanna.
Okay.
I want to close up your childhood. So just because people who are listening might not know, what is Putnam Lake? How did it come to be? And you know, what did you enjoy your time there? Who'd you spend your time with there? Tell us about Putnam Lake.
Putnam Lake, my father was the smart one. See, he wanted to buy a house. And he wanted to buy a house in Brooklyn so that my mother wouldn't have such a big schlep to work. But my mother wasn't so interested. She wanted to stay in the Bronx. So then my father started looking out in Ronkonkoma for a house, and my mother didn't want to live there. So my father took us to Putnam Lake to look at the summer house. She says, we're paying $300 a year to rent a house for the summer. Maybe we should use the $300 and buy a house. So they went to Putnam Lake, and they saw this house. It was $2,300. They were very cheap because people didn't have, the gas was rationed, and people couldn't travel. And my father was a taxi driver, so he had coupons, gas coupons. And so he was able to travel. So they were able to buy, they bought Putnam Lake, and they paid it off $30 a month. And this was our summer home. And my parents would come up on Friday night.
What was the address?
Oh, they didn't have an address at the beginning. It was a dirt road. That hill was all dirt. And when they decided to give people mailbox, and our mailbox was up at the top of the hill. Everybody had, that was RFT3, Brewster, New York. And that's where we got our mail. When they said you can have your own mailbox in front of your house, you have to pick an address. So we were given a choice of from 7 to 15. And I decided on 11. So I took 11 Rhinecliff Road.
Who named it Rhinecliff, do you know?
Oh, it was always Rhinecliff.
Oh, it was always Rhinecliff.
It was always Rhinecliff, yeah. So I took the 11. So it was 11 Ryan Cliff Road after that. Yeah, but when it was RFD3, we used to go up every day and wait for the mailman to come with the mail.
But everybody on the block got it in the one box.
No, everybody had their own box.
Oh, so you...
So up on the top of the hill, there could have been 7 or 8 boxes.
Oh, but was RFD3 your house or everybody's?
Everybody.
Oh, but they just mailed
That
it
was
by
the
name.
route. Rural Free Delivery, RFD. 3 was the route. Yeah. So we used to get our mail up there. And then we got our own mailbox. So we had it down there.
What was it like up there you moved in the 40s, I guess?
Yeah, in the 40s.
So you were the first owner of the house?
The first what?
Owner?
No, the Vetranos built the house. They were trying out how to build a house. And after they built that house, then they knew how to build a house. They went someplace else to build a better one. So they sold this one.
Now, the history that I read of Putnam Lake said that it was actually developed by a department store, and they were selling homes through the department store catalog. Because I've seen the early ads for this place called Putnam Lake. How early do you remember it? Were there many houses?
Well, these
up there?
people, what they did was they bought lots, and they developed them. They built houses on them, and they were supposed to be summer homes. And this guy, Vetrano, he wanted to build someplace else, so he sold us the house. And besides that, he didn't have gas. He couldn't get to the house.
Had you seen the house before it was purchased?
Yeah, sure. We were up there. We could have bought several houses, but they picked this one. This is the one they wanted. So they picked this house.
Let me pause it for a minute. Before we continue talking about Putnam Lake, I just wanted to ask you about the piano, because you also play the piano. Where did you learn that?
Oh, my mother played the piano, and when I was about 8 years old, we lived on the top floor of Wilkins Avenue. My father and mother went and bought a studio-sized piano. It's a regular piano has 88 keys. This one had 66 keys. And I remember them bringing the piano up on through the roof. They brought it up the side of the building. Sometimes you see that in old cartoons and things. My mother got her piano, and
How did they get it in the apartment?
through the window. They heisted up through the...
So they take the window out?
Yeah. Then they put it back in. It was very exciting. So my mother got her piano, and then we were walking one day from the movies or something, and she saw piano lessons, $1. There was a music store. So she went in, and I started taking piano lessons for $1. And I took lessons. First, my mother taught me. My mother taught me at the beginning, but that's no good. It's so good to have somebody at home teach you. So I had lessons for as long as until I started taking cello lessons. Then I quit. But I was pretty good. I wish I could play today the way I used to play. I play beautiful music, and all the classics that Chopin and Liszt wrote, the good stuff, and I used to play all that, but I can't do it now anymore. But I enjoy playing the piano. I play now when Teddy's not around.
So, going back up to Putnam Lake, so I guess it was during World War II, you started going to Putnam Lake for summers?
Yeah, first we would go in the weekends, starting with Memorial Day around there. And then we would, after school was over, we would go there for the summer. And my mother would come and visit us on weekends.
Did you have friends up there?
Yeah. By the way, when we were in Coney Island, my mother worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, but she went home every day to the Bronx and came to visit us on weekends in Coney Island.
So even when you were living in Coney Island, she didn't.
Right.
She did that long commute. Why do you think?
She wanted to get rid of us. I heard her say it. You know, it was too much burden for her. See, I heard it say, you know.
So she didn't really want to be a mother.
I don't know what she wanted to be.
What,
I don't know.
What was her relationship with her own mother?
It was okay, but they used to, when they lived together, they fought a lot. My grandmother was not happy there. And my grandmother was very good to me. I liked my grandmother. She was kind, and she did things for me. My mother never did anything for me. I had to do it myself. But
Sounds like she had a bit of a bitter streak.
I don't know. With it all, I had a good relationship with my mother. We used to do things together. We used to play Scrabble. I used to beat the hell out of her. She didn't like it. The Scrabble and the cello and the piano. And we used to go dancing to the same dances together, you know. There were good times. There was always good times. But there were always bad times. She was crazy. I remember I had 3 children. I had 3 little babies up in Putnam Lake. On Friday, I would cook for the weekend for everybody, and I would clean the house, and I would take care of my babies. They had to go to the beach. They had to do whatever they did. And she walked in the house, and I didn't take the garbage out. I hadn't taken the garbage out. Well, she was yelling at me. You couldn't believe it. Teddy had to defend me. Teddy had to get in the fight because she didn't leave me alone over the damn garbage. That was her way. And then my grandmother added to it. She was yelling at me too.
So, back to Putnam Lake, did you have friends up there?
When I was a kid, yeah. We were one big group. We all swam in the same, we all swam in the same, what do you call it?
Beach?
At the beach. We all swam at the same beach, and we were all friends. And what it was is that it wasn't an age group. We were all there. Like, I was there, my brother was there. My brother was 3 years younger than me. He was with this group. One of the girls had a little friend. Her sister was like 5 years old. She was in the group too. And we were all together. And we walked the road together. If we saved up enough money, we would go and buy beets.
What are they?
Beets. Pizza.
Oh, pizza.
This Italian girl called it beets. I didn't know what it was. Well, it was good. When, you know, I went and I had it. And then when I went to the city and I saw the sign, pizza, I said, that must be what she's saying. Beets. And that's another thing. There were Italians, there were Irish, and there were Jewish. There were a lot more Irish. But then we were all friends. And
Do you keep in touch with any of them today?
no. They, you know, it was only a summer thing.
Were they all summer people too, or were some of them year-round at
No,
that point?
they were all summer people. There was nobody living there all year round. There was only one other Jewish family, and he was a troublemaker. I had trouble with him, but all right.
What kind of trouble?
One time, I had a canoe, and my shoes were in the canoe, and he came by, and whatever he was in, and he turned the canoe over, and my shoes got soaked. And my parents and his parents were on the beach, and he comes up, and I'm crying, I'm so annoyed. And I go to my mother and I said, look what he did to my shoes. So she says, why did you do that? He says, well, she did it to my shoes. I said, I never did such a thing. So they started yelling at me for doing such a thing. And when we went up to the house, I started to yell at them. I said, I never did it. Why didn't you believe me? Why did you trust him rather than me? And I was angry at them because I never did it. And he said he lied.
You've done that to me over the course of time. Whenever there was an issue with me and anybody in authority in school, you would always believe the person in authority. So maybe it's just a parent thing.
Yeah, but that's a person in authority. This was a kid my age.
Right. No, I understand.
You know, that's different.
Who would you say was your first boyfriend?
The first boy I ever kissed was that boy.
Oh, the one from Putnam Lake?
Yeah, Raymond. Yeah, what happened was his cousin
How old were you?
came up, and in the back of the house we had a cold shower where the well was. There was a shower over there. It was only cold water, and it had a little seat in it. And we used to play spin the bottle. And so the first time I got kissed was when I spun the bottle, go into Raymond. We had to go in that little shower, and that's the boy I had to kiss. Yeah. Yeah.
But was there anything more than that with him?
No.
No, so it was, who was your first boyfriend, would you say?
Oh, yeah. The first boyfriend was I mean, there were little boys along the way. There was a boy here and a boy there. My first love was this boy Arthur, and that's...
Oh, interesting. That Arthur, you have a son named Arthur.
This happened up in Hunter, New York.
How old were you?
4, 5.
4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, this was a little boy there that I liked. And there was one of these places where the water made a pool, and we were warned never to go out to the certain point. And I liked this little boy, and he went out and drowned in that pool, and his aunt tried to save him, and she died also.
Wow.
So that's Arthur.
That's terrible. That was at Hunter?
Yeah, that was in Hunter.
Was it a natural lake or a river or a pool?
It was it's like a quarry. It was like a quarry. Of course, there were big rocks, boulders, and then there was this place where you stepped down into the water. And yeah, Arthur and his Aunt Faye died. Yeah, She had one of those hands where she didn't have fingers on one hand, just little toes. And she went in after him, and she died too. So that was my first love. That's not necessarily why I named Arthur Arthur. There was a different reason why. Because my mother was killing me. My mother and my grandmother. I was going to name him. I don't remember. It was with my father's name, but I didn't want it in English because nobody I knew that had Joseph. It was not a good name. I didn't consider it a good name. I gave it to him in Hebrew, but I didn't give it to him in English. And they were killing me. My mother and my grandmother, they didn't like what I was naming him. So I figured, oh, the hell with you, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I named him Arthur. That was, and they couldn't say a word.
No, it's your child.
What?
It's your child, right?
Yeah, but they gave me a lot of trouble. And I was very sick because I had, you know, when you have a cesarean, it's not easy to pop back. So, all right. He was the first boy that I really I had the hots for. I was about 4 years old, 5 years old. Wait, my brother, if he was 3, I was about 6. Yeah. Because my brother, they had a swimming pool in addition to this place where they had this thing, and they had a diving board. And my brother was 3 years old, couldn't swim, but he would dive. He would go off the diving board, jump in the water, and then dog paddle real quick to the side. He couldn't swim, but he would get there. And people were amazed that this kid swam like this. It was funny. Yeah.
What were you doing up at Hunter?
My mother had a friend, Dorothy Gollop. Her mother had a farm up there, and they had their farmhouse, and then they had a little bungalow, and my mother rented it for maybe a couple of weeks. So I have pictures of that, of Martin and me at there. And then we came back the following year. We rented a regular bungalow on the main road, and that was the second year.
It sounds like you actually grew up with some money if you were renting places for the summer.
Yes, well, my mother had to get rid of us. She was getting rid of us. She wasn't there. When I was up in Hunter, my grandmother was with us. And there were mice in the bungalow. You know, they were really... and we used to love it. We said, oh, come here, Micey. And she was screaming, screaming. And Sam was there with us. Yeah. And then Sue came up with the little baby, Michael. She used to call him the Vance. A Vance is a bed bug. What do you call a baby a Vance?
That was a long trip to get up to Hunter back then.
Oh yeah, my mother used to come up with a headache. My mother was so sick from that curve thing.
Because it's 3 hours, best case.
Yes.
Oh, and to get to Hunter, you have to go up 23A's, the curvy road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my mother used to come up with a headache all the time. Yeah, I guess that's why another reason why we went to Putnam Lake, because it was only an hour from the Bronx.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was probably far then too still with the state of the cars, right? Because the cars weren't great back then.
They have the captain's chair.
What's the captain's chair?
From Hunter, if you look out, you can't look out that way. You can only look out this way if you're on the road, because there's trees, there's different things. And there's a mountain there, and it's shaped like a captain's chair, like this. That's probably where they have the skiing.
Probably. I hike there all the time.
Yeah, but I remember it being called the captain's chair.
I suppose it's called the colonel's chair.
Colonel's chair. Oh, I remember
I
one
think it's
time,
still there.
Martin and I and this other girl, we were going to go berry picking. And we went into this field. And one of us stepped in a beehive. And my brother was behind me, and he got it. Oh, that was terrible. Oh, did he scream and cry. You know, he must have been about 6 years old. And we took him home to my grandmother. My grandmother had to take care of him. He was so terrible. Yeah. But the hunter was nice. We liked hunter. I was there till I was 10 years old. I remember my 10th birthday. They gave me a wristwatch. That's the wristwatch that Michael threw in the toilet.
So when were you at Coney Island then?
After that,
Oh, so till 10 you were...
10, I was there at 10, so it must have been 11, 12, 13 in Coney Island, or 2 years at Coney Island. And then we went to Putnam Lake, because I was just in my teens when we went there.
who was your first real boyfriend?
What do you mean by real boyfriend?
I don't know, your first high school love or
Oh.
whatever.
Oh, that would have been Billy Blitz. Billy Blitz was a boy who lived across the street. And
Across the street where?
On College Avenue.
Okay.
And we used to hold hands. And we used to go to the park and we'd climb up in this tree and he would kiss me. And he was really very nice. And I think he may have touched me over here once. The funny thing is, Billy Blitz became my boss.
Oh yeah?
Billy Blitz became a court reporter, and I went into the court reporting field, and I worked for him and his wife.
It was Blitz court reporting.
Yeah,
As I remember that.
yeah. So when I walked in, he touched my face. He says, "Louise?" You know, I hadn't seen him in 20 years. I worked for him for a couple of years. I worked for his wife. He wasn't there. Yeah, but I really liked that boy. And what happened was, my mother didn't like him. So she said, I can't go out with him. And she stopped me from going out with him. See, I could have been the wife of the court reporter instead of the one who got it. See? She didn't know what she was doing. Instead, I got Lonnie. So, but he was the first that way.
Anybody else interesting before Lonnie that you want to talk about?
I don't know. There was a lot of boys. They liked me. I was very friendly.
Did you used to like go drink beer or anything? Were you bad kids that way?
Listen, I had
Or smoke
I
or
had a
anything?
tough time. I'll tell you the truth. My mother sat me down and told me about menstruating. And then she gave me a long lecture on sex. And what did she say? She said, don't let a boy touch you. That's all I ever knew about sex. How can you function in life?
With that advice.
That was what my mother told me. So one time I was kissing a boy, and there's something hard there. I said, what's that? He says, that's a hard-on. I said, oh. I didn't ask him what it was for, and I didn't know what it was for. So I really had a very hard life. And 2 years after I was no longer a virgin, my girlfriend said to me, are you a virgin? And I go like this. I didn't know what it was. Oh, she said, you got your cherry? Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know what she was talking about. Nobody told me a thing. I didn't know anything. And that's the truth. And I suffered a lot because of that. Because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I just didn't know anything.
And it sounds like you didn't have any friends to help you through it, really.
Well, they didn't talk about those things. The fact that this girl said this to me surprised me. It just surprised me. And I didn't know what to say. Because I didn't know what it was.
Uh-huh.
So that's my education. Don't let a boy touch you. So that's why I made sure that when Jackie was a teenager, I got her a book. We sat and read the book together. With you, I didn't have to worry. You were on the bus with Slanter.
On the Jewish bus?
On the Jewish bus.
No, you gave me the famous words of advice. You have to be nice to the Jewish girls. The shiksas are for practice. That was the sex education I got from you.
What is that?
You said you have to be nice to the Jewish girls. The shiksas are for practice.
I'd never said
You
that.
most certainly did.
Oh, I did not.
You most certainly did.
But I don't feel that way. I wouldn't say that.
You did.
I still tell that story about the time you came off the bus and you were angry. And what are you angry about? They didn't believe it when I said they had to cut my mother open to me when I was born. You remember that?
No, I don't remember.
Yes, yes.
I must have been young.
We always tell that joke.
Yeah, I must have been really young.
Yeah.